not attempt to adjust your dial. I'm transmitting live with the hardcore style. Fresh new kicks in the all-star glow. I'm up in the mix, this Paul, large pro. Straight out the gate with the fabulous track. And my devastating rhymes get the platinum plaque. For the underground world, every street and borough, even out of state.
You're doing this super cool, man. So I wanted to have you on and talk a little bit about that. Cool?
Cool.
All right.
Yep.
So I'm going to do a quick intro here, and we'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of The Dirt, featuring people that are the doers, the entrepreneurs, people making stuff happen. They got their hands in it, getting them dirty. Today, I have a very exciting guest. We connected on Instagram, and I immediately became engaged because of the work that this man has done with TNT, and then I've learned about the rest of the body of his work. Eljay Williams, the new content, documentary filmmaker, editor, recent film, by the way, too, The Pathway, which we're going to get into all of that. Eljay, thank you so much for dropping on by today. I really appreciate your time on The Dirt. How are you today, my friend?
Good. No problem, man. Thanks for having me. I'm good,
Yeah,
man. I'm
absolutely.
good.
So you're a Youngstown guy. You grew up in Youngstown.
Oh, born and raised.
No kidding.
Born and raised.
And then off to the University of Pittsburgh. What did you major in?
Well, I had a couple. My fault. I had a couple stops before I made it to the University of Pittsburgh. I went to Central State, was there for my first semester, was forced to leave there, had to come back home, did Youngstown State for a quarter, then Pitt, finished up at Pitt.
I know Central State pretty well. Actually, so when I was in college, I played basketball, and this is probably the real fascination I had because I'm such a hoops junkie. And as we talk about your work on the Inside Story documentary, we played basketball against Central State when I was in college in the early to mid '90s, and so I know I've been down to Central State a handful of times.
Interesting campus.
It's probably evolved a little bit since I was there, but so what did you major in at Pitt that helped you to do what you're doing today?
Well, the thing is, I've always wanted to be in film. And so when I left Youngstown to go to school, they didn't have a program at Central State. They had radio and television. And same thing at YSU, they only had radio and television. So when I got fed up with YSU and I chose Pitt, I saw that, they have what I've been looking for all this time. And so I ended up majoring in film studies there, but there it's not, you're not hands-on with anything. It's more of a research school.
Yeah.
So you learn a lot of the concepts behind the decisions that get made and stuff like that, but you don't put your hands on it there at that school. It's just not set up for that.
So talk to me about then the new content and how you got to where you are today with, you're the primary editor on that 4-part documentary series on TNT with the Inside the NBA. You're doing a lot of high level production work with the Atlanta Hawks. How, that doesn't happen overnight. How'd you get from Pitt to where you're at now and get the experience to be able to do that?
Man, listen, that was a journey in itself. When I was in my final year at Pitt, I decided to move down here, me and my wife to be. We moved down. I finished up school while she was here. I traveled back and forth. And once I graduated, so I was already had a place to stay here. So now I could start looking for employment. I couldn't find any jobs in my field for like 3 years.
Really?
I was cleaning swimming pools, renting cars for Alamo renting car, just any and everything. I delivered papers at night, like midnight, overnight, Wall Street journals. I did all that. Then finally, in the job that I had renting cars, I met a guy who worked at a small portion of AT&T, and they had a little sports show. It was on the cable access channel. And, we talked about it a little bit, and he said, you know what? Come on down and we'll, see what you can do. Well, by this time, like I said, I haven't had my hands on anything. So all I had was my theory and my drive. So I went down there, put my hands on everything they had to offer, and I started getting, a reputation of a guy who knew what he was doing on all these different facets of
Yeah.
production. So from there, the director that I was working with there moved on to another job. And he said, I got a guy who can handle this. That was me. I moved on. So I'm out of the cable access channel. Now I'm on to another channel, which was Fox Sportsnet.
Pause there for a second. What's the
All right.
time?
And so I work.
What's the
Okay.
time frame? Like, what's the year?
So I got down
Around.
here in 97. So 3 years from now, we're talking 90, 91.
Gotcha.
Right.
All right.
And
Right.
so,
Okay.
like I said, he moved me. I moved over to Fox Sports Net along with him, and from there, I'm working, crane cameras, jib cameras. I'm doing audio. I'm cutting promos, all of that stuff. Just any and everything I can put my hands on because I'm freelancing, and so the money has to come. So you have to work. So I'm doing that, and eventually, I put my hands on an Avid, and they saw that I had some talent there, in which I didn't know myself because I hadn't put my hands on it. But they saw talent there, and they let me go ahead and continue to flourish doing that. And from there, I shifted to doing producing with editing. So I'm a predator, as they call it.
Yeah.
And I started traveling with the Hawks. So I traveled with the Hawks for like 3 more years. So wherever the Hawks were, I was on the plane with them, traveling, producing, and cutting the opens to broadcast. Every city, back to backs, whatever. I was rarely in Atlanta. So once I kind of got through that stage, through 3 years or whatever, a friend of mine asked me to teach him how to use Final Cut, which was starting to gain speed in the editing world. And so I taught him, and he moved over to Time Warner. Well, at that time it was Turner Sports. So he moved over there, and he was like, "Yo, you need to come over here. You need to come over here. They need you over here." And I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever, because I'm feeling good. I'm traveling. I'm in every state, wherever. I'm with a NBA franchise everywhere they go. I'm loving it.
Right.
He
You're
said, "Well,
part of the
just come over
show.
here." I know. He said, "Just come over here and take the tour." I said, "All right, I'll take the tour." I went over there. I saw night and day from what I was doing
Yeah. Yeah.
to what I could be doing over here. And I made the decision, moved over here. And from there, all I do on a day to day is edit the high end pieces along with a group of guys, and young ladies, I should say.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
say guys, but I mean
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the
Team.
crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I'm here. And from there, then I decided to branch out and do projects on my own. That's where the new content comes in at. So then you have documentary series I did with Comcast when they were trying to birth on demand. So they wanted to touch the urban community, so they looked to me to do that. So I did turnkey programming for the Falcons. It was a show by the name of For the Love of the Game. So basically, we would go down and do different exposés on high level fans who are there, and they live, breathe, and eat Falcons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we did features on those guys, and then in turn flipped it and did the same thing for Braves fans. So those are the things I did for Comcast to build the new content. Then shifted to music, the stand on demand. They wanted to take it to another level, so I shot them the idea. We have a lot of indie talent in Atlanta. Let me do exposés on them. That became a documentary series, a mini documentary series for indie artists, which in turn blew from just Atlanta to New York, Philadelphia, across the seas. Artists were wanting to be on the show, so I kept pushing.
Yeah.
So it just kept things just kept spiraling all the way up to the point where I'm at now. We could be talking for days because I got all these little nooks and crannies that I've done. You know what I mean?
I love it though. Like it's an exercise in hard work. It's not an overnight success. It's taking risks and being uncomfortable, right? And then the talent to also back that up. Like, you know, they say that you can get onto the playing field, but it's talent which really keeps you there and keeps opportunities coming your way, and the willingness to go and do that. And that's what I hear. That's what I hear a lot in your story is like, you know, let me ask you this question. Why'd you pick Atlanta? Because you could have went, it sounds like to me, like after Pitt, you could have kind of went anywhere you wanted to go. Could have came back to, like, why'd you pick Atlanta? What was interested you about Atlanta?
Well, with Atlanta, I was, you know, throughout my research of trying to figure out where I could project myself in the future, I kind of try to figure out where the trends were, and the trends were for the film industry to go to Atlanta. That was what the trend was, and that was back in '90. Like I said, I
Yeah,
got down here in '97, so around '96 or so, '95 or so is when I was doing this research, and they were saying that the trend was going to move the film industry to Atlanta. Well, when I got here, it still wasn't here.
right. You
It's
were
it's
early.
heavy now, but it wasn't when I was here. So that right. So I kind of gravitated to what else I knew, and that was music and sports. And so that's where I'm in this little bubble where I'm doing more so documentaries and things like that instead of the feature part of films.
Um, so does Tyler Perry kind of be is he one of the main drivers behind that film industry in Atlanta?
Uh I would say yes and no,
Yeah.
because there's more studios down here that are doing the work. He does a lot of work, and he has a lot of people flowing in and out of the city to work at his facilities.
Yeah. Okay.
But even like where like I reside in Conyers, right? A lot of those shows like the originals and a lot of those series are shot in Conyers, and it has nothing to do with Tyler Perry. You know, that's just where they chose and they saw the opportunity
Yeah. Yeah.
because all the incentives that the state was given.
So now, do you you said music and sports to be
Hmm.
around it that much? You're passionate. Are you you're passionate about sports? I take it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, growing up here in Youngstown, that's really what you got. You got sports and you got music. I mean, what else is there? You
Hey,
know.
there's
So
no. I mean, you're exactly right. Like I left in '91. You know, went off to college and played basketball, and then from there went to Cleveland and New York City and Columbus. 8 years ago, we moved back to raise our family here. But you're exactly right. I mean, like, yeah, yeah, it's a lot of sports.
right, and then you know, I'm passionate, very passionate with football and basketball, but I've learned NASCAR and I've learned hockey through my years of working because I've done Daytona. You
Really?
know, oh yeah, I've worked for Phoenix Coyotes as well as the Atlanta when Atlanta had the Thrashers back then. I did a
Yeah,
lot of work with them also. So there's you know you kind of gravitate to these things and you learn them. I learned golf. You know,
yeah.
I never thought I would work in golf. I did that. Um, I've done MLB playoffs series and stuff. I just it happened, and you
Yes.
learn it along the way. You know.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So you got to be the primary editor. You were the editor on the Inside Story, the four-part documentary series that featured
Hmm.
Shaq,
Hmm.
Kenny, EJ, and Chuck. Tell us a little bit about that documentary because I started watching. I started watching it in preparation for this, and then I really love the show. It's a really groundbreaking. You know, people don't recognize that just four guys up there talking about basketball and pre and post game stuff and cuts in between of how revolutionary that show was, and how impactful it is. So, I mean, that's a big moment to, I think, do that documentary. We lost LJ.
I had a phone call come through.
You know what? I have that too. And I may need an editor, by the way. I may have to. No, but so yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that documentary. I think it's really cool.
Well, me and Peter Dennis. He's the other guy, the other senior editor on this project. Well, we were actually the only two editors on this project.
Yep.
And how it came about, the producer Audrey Martin, she talked to the people, the decision makers, about doing a podcast about 30 years of inside the NBA, right?
Yeah.
And they decided that it was bigger than that, and she welcomed that, of course. And so she decided to start working on it, and she pulled Pete. And so they're working on it, and they saw that it was a lot more than one person could lift. And so they called me, and I said, definitely, because I visited back when we were not working from home, in our different edit suites. We go around and talk to one another and see what each other's working on. And I saw what they were working on. I was telling them, this is incredible, and I was actually going through their, they called it the murder board. It was just a board of a whole bunch of cards, 3.5 cards with the different topics and how to try to restructure the actual story and not tell it chronologically, but make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yo, this is incredible. And not long after that, they called me to join in. So I was like, yeah, no doubt. And you say that a project that is that heavy, is that important, I was proud to be a part of it, because this only happens once in a lifetime.
Absolutely.
So I dove in. It took me like a week to just catch up to where they were at.
Yeah.
Because of how robust it is. You're talking, like you said, 30 years, and these guys have been doing this every night during the playoffs for 30 years, and not to mention every Thursday throughout an 82 game season. So that's a lot of material, right?
Right.
So we're going through all of that material. We're going through the interviews that we had. We had over 100 and believe 170 interviews. We're going through all of those, and we're trying to build out a story. And so it was a heavy lift, but
yeah,
it was very enjoyable. I put 2 years into it. They probably put 2.5 years into it. So now I kind of forgot your question because we went off, but
that's incredible, man. Like I put out a print publication and I did 2 volumes of it, and I could relate. Like I worked on that from the time I had the first meeting to the time that we had our final product. It was around 2 years. And and it was funny because at the end we were getting close, and I had some people that were in the publication. They're like, it took less time to print the Bible than it is to print this this publication that I made. And I was like, look, this is not a speed thing. It's a like, we want the final product to be amazing. And when somebody trusts you with trust you with telling that story, it comes with a lot of responsibility, and I think it's amazing that you acknowledge that and feel that. Did you get a chance to interact with any of those guys that were obviously or you're purely on this side?
Well, unfortunately, when we were getting deep into it, trying to wrap it up and everything, and start to finalize everything, that's when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So what you're watching in those 4 episodes was what we created from our homes.
Yeah. Wow.
So once that happened, there was Zoom meetings and WebEx meetings, and working through WebEx with equipment that we haven't really proven yet to come up with what we came up with. So No, unfortunately, we did not get a chance to sit down and discuss. And normally, we would be right there. My office is literally 10 steps from the studio,
Yeah.
so I could interact as much as I would want to at that point, but I couldn't because I'm working from home now.
Yeah.
So all of that was thrown out of the window. So any kudos that they throw our way on air is just based off of knowing that this is the name of the person who put their hands on it. You know,
Yeah.
they can't really put a face to it. So it's weird in that sense, but it's still appreciated. You know.
Yeah, it is, man, and I mean, it's an amazing. I mean, I watched. I'm 3/4 of the way through the first episode, and it's just really amazing. Like it brings me back, like to like just that moment in time. Like like I know where I am or was when I'm watching like the beginnings. I remember David Aldridge. I remember all those guys that like were Steve Sager that were on those broadcasts and. Yeah, it just makes you relive it. And so how has you're old school. You have a foot in both. You have a foot in both worlds now. You were
Yeah.
in the game pre-internet and now post-internet. How much has the internet and everybody's ability to be able to be creating content of some sort and video, and how has the internet changed and technology changed your job for better for worse, and anybody out there that's also creating content?
Actually, I love it
Yeah.
because it affords me the opportunity to do what I do outside of Warner Media
Sure.
and be able to touch millions of people. You know, before, if I do a project and I don't have the internet, I'm just reaching out to Tony and them that I know down the street. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? My friends back in Youngstown, a couple of friends that I met here, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But now I can put out, a pathways or whatever, and throw a trailer up and start garnering attention, and not necessarily just based off of you knew me, and so now you're gonna give me some props because you know me. No,
Right.
they can look at the work and say, "Oh, this is interesting. I'm interested in that." And so that I love it. I love it. It
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't think it. The only way it harms like a major company like Warner is if they don't keep up with the times.
Yeah.
You know, and doesn't see that, okay, we have to bend a little bit from our normal way of doing things to reach more people or reach the people we've always reached,
Right.
that sort of thing. But other
I,
than that,
I'd agree with that. I think that any media company that's out there today, and that's kind of what happened to our local newspaper, is that they wanted to be in the business of selling newspapers for 50 cents or a dollar for the newspaper, instead of being in the content delivery game and meeting people in these new ways that where they want to engage in content. And like, I mean, this very podcast has a a respectable regional following, and it's been built up enough to where we're able to get some sponsorship dollars because of that that following. And media companies that are traditional thinking, they just don't evolve with the times, and they're not going to be around.
right, right.
Nice segue, by the way, though, into what I wanted to talk about next is your most recent film
Hmm.
is called The Pathway.
Yeah, Pathways. Sean's
The
Lament.
Pathways. Yep.
Yes, Sean's Lament.
And so that is a period piece, a throwback piece to Atlanta.
Correct.
And yeah, go ahead.
It's it's very interesting because of the process that got it to become a period piece. You work in budgets. You well aware of this cost this and this cost that. Well, the funds for the film were tapped till years later. Then I could tap into it again. So, do you reshoot and recreate, or does it become a period piece? In my experience, you make it a period piece,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because now you can allocate funds for other things as opposed to reshooting. And so that's where you got, it being 2010 Pathway.
Yeah.
What happened in that era of independent music in Atlanta? So it's a big change now. It's a huge change now in what Atlanta's indie scene is as opposed to how things were then.
Really?
And
In
oh,
just a decade.
oh, definitely. Oh,
Yeah.
night and day, night and day. So like majority of the stuff that was happening in that film, if you notice in the film, there's a Razor flip phone
Oh
as
yeah.
opposed to an iPhone or any other smartphone. There's a Razor flip phone.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we weren't there yet,
Right.
you know. And the opening credit scenes, the imagery of all the different, you know, elements of flyers, because that's how they were promoting, you know, their concerts hand in hand with flyers, as opposed to, you know, internet, as opposed to shooting it out through Instagram or shooting it out through Facebook and all that. Hell, MySpace was barely getting going at that time.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
so yeah, it definitely is. If you stepped into that film and watched that film, you are placed in a time frame specific to what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, people, you know, it's. I don't want to say taken for granted, but the fact that these apps, social media, YouTube, music is integrated now into, you know, you can purchase royalty free music, so artists can. I mean, they may not make a lot of money, but like they're getting exposure from it, and we kind of take this whole world that we're living in now and just are like, yeah, but the Instagram wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you and I aren't connecting in 2010 the
Correct.
way that we connect, right? Like we're there's that by luck chance that I'm someplace and I meet you, and you know, you always meet somebody from Youngstown, Ohio, by the way. It's just a really weird thing. But but other than that, luck, you know, once in a lifetime, you know, one in a million chance, you know, you're right. Like Instagram, so many artists taking advantage of that to build the following to promote their shows, and I'm anxious to see the movie, and I can't wait to do that. LJ, I really appreciate you being on today, man. You're a super talented guy, and you are one of
Appreciate it.
those people that are out there getting it done, getting the work done, putting the work in, and I appreciate your story. Appreciate you sharing that with us, and let's stay in contact, man. I really look forward to that.
Appreciate it, Dennis, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You take care, my friend. We'll see you.
All right.